Hey everybody, I'm Jesse Batend, and this is We Still Like You, the show where people embrace their shame by telling their most embarrassing stories in front of a very forgiving audience.
Okay, this is a nightmare I may not be ready to live through.
I started getting crushes on boys.
Real embarrassed about this.
My mouth gets the best of me pretty much all the time.
Okay, I'm just like, okay. All right.
There we go.
Today, we have two stories of shame that never would have happened if the people telling them had just lived one house over. This week, it's stories about neighbors and the terrible things we do to them. Buying a house is a big deal. For some of us, probably the biggest deal we've ever made. But that's the easy part. See, after you buy a house, you have to defend it.
And I come out and the guy runs, and then my neighbor comes and he has a gun. And we're running and chasing the guy with a gun and a baseball bat. Now, have you ever done that?
First up from Chicago, comedian Peterson tells this story about facing off against a pack of wild teens.
This story is about how my own fear and the police made me sell a house. I want to explain that. And the reason I'm ashamed of this is because it's out of fear. It was based in fear, which is not the kind of person I would like to be, you know? I don't think a lot of us want to be or have fear-based decisions in our life, but I did. I became a person I didn't like. I slept with a shotgun by my bed for about a year. It was not a good time. I've been in Chicago for about 5 years. And a lot of people know me, but a lot of people don't know my life before I came to Chicago. They think I'm like a magical drifter who can teach them lessons or something. But I was actually a very responsible person. I was married. I owned a home. I had a 50-hour-a-week job, and I had real conversations about starting a family. And now I live with Kevin and have a podcast, so things are different. Things are a little bit different now. Things have changed. But I was the manager of a video game store, of a used video game store, and with that money, I bought a house for $63,000. Right, this is Omaha, Nebraska, so it's a huge house. No, it was during the housing crisis, but like someone in their 20s gets a first house, not in a great neighborhood. The thing that makes the neighborhood bad is the neighbors. And I had two really bad neighbors. One right across the street, it's a lady that was very drunk all the time and had a lot of children. I don't know how many. There were a lot. If they were all hers, I have no idea how genetics work. It's seriously, I have no idea. She could have been running a daycare for all I know. 15, 16, 20, 25 kids everywhere. And they would be in the street doing crazy shit. And they'd also be throwing shit at my house. They've egged my house. They'd be fucking with my car. And they used to be crying in the middle of the street. We called Child Protective Services, called the cops, and they did nothing, absolutely nothing. And then they used to have a dog that they leave out in the front yard, and then that's bad. You don't want that. And then there's a guy that came around and tied that dog to his truck and just parked the truck on the sidewalk and let the dog hang out, run around the street, but it's attached to a truck. We called the Humane Society. They got the dog. So, hey, that's good. Yeah, those 16 kids, they're fucked. But that dog, all right. Yeah, police are cool. They were shitty. They were loud. They were shitty. They were annoyance. And then 2 doors down from them was a bunch of teenagers. And teenagers do teenager things. They're loud, right? There's a bunch of them. And that's about it. Until they called my wife a bitch. And she wasn't thrilled about that. Now, my ex-wife used to deal coke in high school. So she had words with them. And things got heated. And they did not like us after that. Because they were annoyance, now they really don't like us. And it wasn't a huge deal for a while. I moved my bedroom from the front window to the back bedroom. What was once the office is now my bedroom. And so I don't have to hear people anymore, so it's fine. And that was fine. And it lasted, I lived there for about 3 years. And then 2.5 years in, I was at home one night. And I was very high. You guys like weed? Yeah. Oh boy. You ever smoke it? Oh, man. Makes you all fucking weird. Yeah. Imagine being super stoned. Now, this is before I started comedy, and comedy made me do less drugs, which is fucking crazy. But that's before I started doing comedy, and I smoked weed all the time. That's all I did. And imagine being very high and looking out your window and seeing a dude in the driveway, like trying to break into your house. Imagine that. Imagine the insane shit that goes through your house. And then I go out the back door with a baseball bat and my dog, which is a huge-ass dog, and I come out and the guy runs, and then my neighbor comes and he has a gun. And we're running and chasing the guy with a gun and a baseball bat. Now, have you ever done that? You ever done that while you're high as shit? That's fucking scary. All right, now, I did not catch him. I called the cops, they did nothing, of course, because that's what they do. They don't do anything good. This has a bad ending for them. Well, for me, because of them. But after that, things intensified. Because they knew that we were the people calling the cops, they were calling Child Protective Services, et cetera, et cetera. So every time we left our house, we got heckled, we got threatened. They would throw shit at my house. I had to leave my grandfather's retirement party because people were breaking into my house. And I couldn't do much about it. I couldn't sell the house. I was 3 years into a 30-year mortgage. What can I do? So I just dealt with it. I got a dog, I got a gun, I had a double-barrel shotgun. It was a cool gun. I guess, I don't know, I don't have it anymore. I live in Chicago. Don't need a gun in Chicago. All right, that's a joke, I'm being facetious. My grandfather's gun, he gave it to me when he died, but it wasn't on purpose. But it all came to a head one day. It was Sunday and I was watching football. I like football. I'm sitting on the couch. And then I hear gunshots. And now I heard a lot of gunshots. I heard gunshots every day, and that's fine. But these were different. They were closer and they were louder. I look out the window and there's two guys with shotguns running down the street shooting at someone or something. And I'm like, hey, this is not good. So I call the police. And they're like, hey, that's not good. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then they're like, hey, can we have your name and address? I go, no, absolutely not. And they go, well, we're not coming unless we get it. So I gave them my name and my address because they said they weren't going to come. And I had people run around my house with shotguns, which is bad. And they came and they arrested some of the teenagers, and I don't know if they lived there or whatever, but they had guns, so they got arrested. And then I was like, okay, that's fine. I spent the night in a hotel. I didn't feel great about my place right there. About 3 weeks later, I get a summons in the mail to testify against my neighbor. And he gets the same summons, and on the top of the summons is my name and address. Right? So these individuals who know that I do not like them, and they do not like me, and know they call the cops on them, know where I live and who I am, and I'm going to testify against them. So I sold my house. What the fuck would you do? Right? I mean, that's scary as shit. I'm already being almost terrorized in my house by a bunch of fucking teenagers, which is bad, and it's scary, but I mean, what do you do? I made money on that house. Of course, if you don't count the $7,000 porch I put on the back and the $2,000 refinishing of the kitchen and the bathroom and the upstairs. I made $200 on the house. I made $200. And I don't feel good about it, but thank you for your time.
We still like you. Don't forget about that. Zach Peterson, everybody, one more time.
Comedian Zach Peterson. Zach has a podcast called Arguments and Grievances. It's a comedy debate show, and it's a lot of fun. Definitely worth checking out. I can't recommend it enough. Up next, Ryan Williams has to get rid of the evidence. Welcome back to We Still Like You. Our second story of neighborly shame comes to you from comedian Ryan Williams. It's about what happens when a joyride turns into I don't know, when stealing a car stops being fun. From Chicago, here's improviser Ryan Williams.
James Kohler. Remember that name. And this is how he would say it. James Kohler. Right? You guys probably all had a friend like this, right? Like he was the skeevy guy. Like you remember on the show Dinosaurs? Right? Where there was the guy who would like humble in like this and he's like, "Hey, can you want to come out and get into trouble?" Like that was James Kohler for me. He never got into drugs as much as I did. He did them all. But he was addicted to fucking trouble. He would, like, man, that was the only thing that gave him just a fucking rock hard boner, right? Was just sneaking out of the house and running across the street and touching the YMCA and coming back without getting, like, that was it, right? And so we used to sneak out. We'd sneak out together. And in Dallas, everybody has an alarm system. And so I had to learn how to rig the alarm system at my house. And if you've never done this, an alarm system runs a wire that goes to a window, and there's a magnet, and then there's a wire that leaves it. And then on the sill, there's just a freestanding magnet. It's just a magnet that's nailed to it, and then you close it, and the two magnets collide, and then you have a closed circuit, right? And you can set the alarm. Well, turns out if you crack the window a little bit and then take a different magnet and put it on there, same thing. It doesn't know the fucking difference, right? So I have this small window in my Jack and Jill bathroom that I shared with my brother, and above the toilet, you had to climb up on the toilet, and it's this little, it was like the least suspecting one, the one my dad wouldn't find. And so I'd crack it, and then I'd take like a magnet I found on the fridge and just like put it on the other side, right? And as long as you leave that window cracked, you're fine. Dad would set the alarm, everything was great. And then we'd sneak out and just fuck around, you know, do whatever, drugs, you know. Mostly pot at that age. You know, I graduated later, but... and my buddy James was the king of fucking sneaking out, man. This guy loved to sneak out. He lived for that shit, right? So he would come to my house and meet me, and as soon as my dad went to bed, I'd give it a good 5-10, stuff some shit in the bed sheets, like, you know, pants and like a teddy bear to make it look like someone's in there, and... for real, like, it sounds like some movie shit, but I did that, because it's like, why not, you know? Dad would be like, it looks like him. You know, like a hat, or what, like, who sleeps in a hat? I don't know. Not me. So I'd set that shit up. Well, this one particular night, the story happened, I'm sitting on my couch, and I'm waiting for my dad to go to sleep. My dad and I are watching TV together, and there's a window over here from my point of view, and then my dad's point of view is like a window over here. We're both watching the TV. And I'm watching TV with my dad, and I'm just waiting. I'm like, fucking Sports Center end, right? And I'm looking out the window, and I swear to God, I see James out in my lawn. What that means is that James has got 30 minutes to just fuck around in my cul-de-sac. He's got nothing to do. And I'm like, oh, fuck. I'm waiting. Finally, my dad goes to sleep. The alarm gets set. I give it a couple of minutes. I stuff the shit in there. And I climb out my window like this over the toilet, trying not to flush it as I leave. And then I get out, and you climb out onto like an AC unit, right? And then I turn around, and James is standing right in front of me. He's like, dude. And I'm like, what? He goes, your neighbor left his keys in his car. And I'm like, no, right? My neighbor directly next to me had a daughter my age, my school. We're friends, and they have a town car that just sits out in front on this like driveway that's in, like, you know, all the alleys lead to the garages, and then in the front there's like little drives and shit, right? Affluent neighborhood, I'd say. And I come out, and he's got the keys. He's like, dude, come on, let's just take it for a drive. Let's fuck around. And I'm like, oh, God, Jesus Christ. Yeah, fuck yeah, let's do this, right? So he turns it on, we get to rolling, right? And right off the bat, I'm fucking scared because he's like, this isn't his car. He doesn't give a fuck. He's driving it. He's, nailing corners, going out. We get out onto Hillcrest Avenue in Dallas, Texas, and it goes down Long Hill, and then it leads to a train track right here, train track, and it goes up, and then it comes down a little bit, right? So he's hauling balls. We're doing probably 60 and a 40. Nothing crazy, except it was a 40. And we hit the train tracks, and he caught air over it, and we're like, that scene from, what is it? Yeah, Ferris Bueller. Like we're coming up like, right? Lands, everything's cool, we're still going. And he turns into the street, still doing about 45, 50. Front right tire pops, bam, dude, just flat as it gets, right? Flat as it gets. And we're like, oh, fuck, we're fucked. We're not far off the main street. It's like 2:30 in the morning, and we have a stolen car, and the tires popped. And we're like, what the fuck are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And James is like, dude, we'll just put the spare on, we'll take it back. Like, right? Like, they'll come out the next morning and be like, oh, how nice of them. Like, what the fuck is that? So we open up the trunk, and it's one of those tires you need a special key for, right? You need a special key to unlock it. You can't just, like, use your hand like a real human. Like, there's a market for stolen fucking donuts. I don't know. So we're in there, and we're, like, trying to figure it out. We're, like, banging it with shit, and we can't get it out, and, like, time's ticking. We're like, cop's gonna come by at any point in time. What the fuck are we gonna do, right? And James is like, I got it. The train tracks, right? Like, right there's a train bridge over the creek, and we could just dump it over the fucking cliff, right? Like, just right over the thing, in the thing. And I was just like, I'm like, it's like Da Vinci Code. I'm like running 1,000 calculations in my head. I'm just like, like, what do we do this? Fuck it. That's the best thing I could think of, right? And so our plan was, on this flat tire, to be like, ba-dump, 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 as fast as we could, and then turn along the same direction as the tracks, and then somehow make it over like a concrete thing this big and dump it down. It was the stupidest idea ever. And we got going. We were doing probably 35 on a ba-dump, 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 ba-dump. He turns, he goes the same direction as the tracks. As soon as it leaves the road, it just sinks into the gravel. Just sinks into the gravel like it does. It's like, fa-tunk, nothing. There's no way. And, like, tires are spinning. Like the gravel, the fucking rocks they have on the side of the train tracks, like all that, a car will sink in that shit. So we're like, what are we gonna do? Like, our prints are all over this thing, dude. Like, I've been sweating and, like, grabbing and pushing buttons and, like, whatever else I was doing. And James is like, the only way we're gonna get off of this, he's like, look across the street. Across the street, there's a house that had recently raked all their shit and put it in plastic bags. There's like 3 or 4 plastic bags full of leaves. All right? And James is like, help me. And like starts grabbing bags of leaves and bringing them over to the car. And I'm just like, at this point, I'm in fucking auto mode. I'm freaking out, right? Prints. He's talking about prints on the car. It's got a pop tire. It's in here. Like, I'm just like 15, 16 years old, just like, I'm getting my ass fucked in prison, just like, I'm just like, I'm a fuck it, dude. So I grab the leaves. I'm like, this is the best thing I could think of. It's the only way that we're gonna get rid of these fingerprints. And we filled this Lincoln Town car with leaves. I mean, just filled it with leaves and lit it on fire, closed the doors, left the windows open. I swear to God this happened. And ran. Just fucking ran. We made sure it was lit, it was going, and we ran. And at this point, I'm probably 3 miles from my house. Like I knew all the alleys. Dallas is full of alleys. And I knew all the alleys to get there without like running into cops and shit. So we're running down the alley, and we get about halfway there, and we're like looking back over the trees and shit. And we're looking back over the trees. And we get about 2/3 of the way home, and just you could fucking feel it. I swear to God, you could feel it. Like we're running, we're just like, oh, this is fucking crazy, dude. We're fucking never gonna do anything. No. And then you start hearing the. Is that better? I don't know. And we're like, what the fuck are we gonna do? And we ran all the way back to my house, and my house was up on a big hill, and my neighbor's house was right there, and I swear to God, we sat in my neighbor's front yard, and you could see like the tip of the flames, and like you could see like the activity over the fucking trees as this car exploded and burned. We drove by the next day, and it was literally just the shell. You know, like the pipe, I don't know what it's called, the frame. It was literally just the frame. I don't know what they did. There was no door panels. There was nothing, just frame. And I had to go to school with this girl, like, every day. She was like my friend.
Years later, Ryan and a group of his old friends from his hometown get together to go see one of Ryan's comedy shows.
And she was there. She's still a friend of mine. And and she saw the show, and then we all decided to go to a bar across town, and it had been eating at me. And so I was like, do you mind if I catch a ride with you, and we'll go together, and we'll head over there? And she's like, yeah, jump in, it'd be great, blah, blah, blah. And we get on the highway, and it was just like, I was like, hey, thanks for coming tonight. Thank you for going out of your way for me. I have something I have to tell you, and I feel terrible about it. And, you know, because years later, I was 15 years old, whatever. Okay, it was still fucked up. But anyway, I was like, look, do you remember... You know, we were in like late junior high, early high school, and someone stole your car and blew it up. Like, I remember it, right? Like, and they found it down on the train tracks, and she was like, yeah, no, I remember that. And I was like, I feel terrible, but that was me and James Kohler. And she goes, oh, yeah. James told me 5 years ago. I was like, what the fuck? Dude didn't even tell me he was telling her, just told her. And I was like, so you get, I'm so sorry. I've been eating, it's been eating at me. I apologize. I can't believe that you knew and didn't say something. We should have talked about this, blah, blah, blah. And she straight up, she was like, you know what the hard part was? She goes, her father had passed away 6 months before this happened. Her father passed away, and she was like, well, you remember my dad died? And she goes, that was the last thing that he bought our family before he died. And I swear to true story. And I was like, fuck. And she was like, I want you to know that the past is the past and we're good. But just so you know, that was a very serious thing for me and a very real thing for our family. And it felt like, fuck, I wish I had a punchline right here. Like, I hadn't planned it out. But the fact of the matter is that I did it, and she's forgiven me, and we're still good friends. And so that's my fucked up story. I hope you guys still like me. That's one of many.
Comedian Ryan Williams. And that does it for this episode of We Still Like You. Make sure to check out all of our performers from today's show. Zach's podcast, Arguments and Grievances, can be found wherever you get your podcasts. As always, if you have a story you want to tell, we would be so happy to have you on We Still Like You. Just send us an email to westilllikeyu@gmail.com, and we'll get in touch about how to do the show. And until next time, thank you for listening.